Hey there, gang. This one's a little out of the ordinary. We have a Coodercaster. Some of you might not know what that is. Ry Cooder, the storied master of the slide guitar. You ever watch Crossroads from 1986 with Ralph Macchio? It's a beautiful coming-of-age story where a young karate kid learns the true meaning of friendship while overcoming his inner Steve Vai and showing an elderly black man what the blues is all about. Ry did the music for that. He also did Buena Vista Social Club and a whole bunch of other great albums. So he has a propensity for modifying instruments in search of a sound, and one of his more famous experiments involved inserting a large through-strung lap steel pickup from an old Supro into a Stratocaster. That became the Coodercaster. It's a giant, slightly ungainly looking thing, but it has a tone and quality of sustain that's kind of hard to match. Yeah, it's a big, heavy piece of hardware. To install this, I had to plug the original bridge pickup hole in the top and put on this half-plate bridge as well. This guitar has a TV Jones Filtertron style pickup in the neck position. I did not make this cutout in the pickguard, in case you're wondering. It came to me like that. Alfie has found himself one of his favorite. It's also a TV Jones. This is a Supertron, which uses a steel blade rather than the individual pole pieces. So we're going to put this one in for him.
So I went digging, and I actually found photos from when I was installing this thing 7 or 8 years ago. I made a plug to fill the old bridge recess. To flush mount this pickup is a bit of a trick. I'm not sure if Lawler was trying to be exacting in copying something, but there's a number of weird protuberances on the bottom of the pickup. The pole pieces, these strange square corner blocks that have to fit below the surface, and the wire doesn't come out on the edge where you expect it is, so you have to make a trough for it. This is an in-process shot as I was carving those out. The square blocks on the corners are very close to the edge, so you can't just drill a round hole of a diameter that will accommodate them, because the edges of the hole would poke out beyond the outline of the pickup. Anyway, it was a fun job.
We're also going to switch up the electronics. I can't remember, it's been years. I think we started off with the pots that were in it, which are the standard 250K Fender pots. We're going to swap them for 500K pots and also rewire the switch. This is a 4-way switch, and there are a whole bunch of different schematics available on the web for different combinations. I think this one has neck, bridge, also series and parallel, but they're not in the most intuitive order. I think it's probably neck, series, bridge, series, and parallel. I can't remember. But I found one that is a better, more intuitive, so we'll change that. The other thing we're going to do is make the tone control work on the bridge pickup only. That can be useful in a Telecaster where you might want to turn down the treble on the bridge pickup, but leave the neck turned all the way up so that it doesn't get too muffled if you switch over from one to the other. You know what I mean? In the standard setup, you only have the one tone control, and it affects both pickups equally. Alfie is never going to want to darken his neck pickup. He might want to take some treble off the bridge, so that's what we'll do. I'm tempted to do some side-by-side comparisons to see the difference between the two neck pickups here, but realize I'm also messing around at the same time with the pots and possibly changing the resistance by switching the wiring scheme. So this wouldn't be a true fair test of the pickup design, just how it sounds in this particular installation.
So I'll get into things and remove the old wiring. Looking at this, I realize I wasn't the one who wired this switch. There are a number of things that just aren't me. Some bare jumper leads, electrical tape, that kind of thing. I think I must have just put the Lawler on and worked with what was there. This hole was a snug fit. I had to go back and enlarge it slightly in order to get the pickup lead through there.
The decision has been made to upgrade everything, including the jack. There's nothing wrong with this jack. It's just a standard Switchcraft style jack. We're going to use one of these new Pure Tone multi-contact jacks. These are kind of interesting. These guys have two opposing spring arms on either side of the jack barrel, so they don't wiggle around, and it's unlikely that you'll be able to wear this one out in your lifetime. There's constant pressure from both sides, and just nicely made. And they fit in the electro socket.
One of these days I'm going to make myself a really good, truly solid set of helping hands. I like these lock line ones here, but they do kind of move around in ways I'm not prepared to deal with all the time. Preparing the new capacitor, using an alligator clip as a heat sink, especially on the side going to the pot, because that's a big surface there, and it takes a bunch of heat that could transfer up into the cap and damage it if you're not careful. It's good to give the solder a few seconds to cool down on its own. Don't blow on it. Try not to move the parts as it's cooling, because that could cause a cold joint. When you're done, the surface should look shiny, not dry and gray. I like to do the jumper wires on the switch first, before connecting the pickup leads. Everyone has their own order of operations. I try to make it so that if down the road we want to switch the pickups again, it's easy to do that. So the lead wires aren't, for instance, buried underneath the jumper wires. You know, just apply some heat and take them off and put the new ones on. And yes, I really am more of a woodworker than an electronics guy. I'm the first to admit that. It's not pretty, but it's functional. And of course, use heat shrink tubing on anything that might cause a short.
Okay, you guys want to watch some frustration in real time? So I finished wiring up the circuit. This is right off of Lindy Freyland's website. It's a pretty simple design. I've used it on at least 2 and I think 3 different guitars at this stage, with the one little change for the tone circuit. Never had a problem before. Today, however, it's just refusing to go for some reason, and I can't figure out why. Gone through every single connection, made sure they were all sound and in the right place. The switch works fine. However, the volume control is not changing the volume. On either pickup. It's frustrating. I don't know why. I'm at the stage where I'm almost suspecting it's the pot, and I might have to go and change that out just to alleviate my fears.
So I took it out, and yeah, it was the pot. It was the first time that's ever happened to me with a new one fresh out of the bag. Old ones can corrode over time, and you sort of expect some funny things to happen, but this is a first. Testing it, I got this weird wobbly value that didn't stay in one place as I swept through. So, put a new one in, and it worked just fine.
So the saga continues. I got the switching all right. Sounds okay. And I happen to notice that if I touch the neck pickup, specifically this rail here, there is a rather annoying buzz. Doesn't seem to do it if I touch the other rail, or the cover plate in general. Doesn't happen if I touch the bridge. And I also notice that if I happen to touch that rail there, and the shielded backside of the pick guard kind of goes away, which really, it spells bad news. So pull out the old multimeter, check for continuity, check the cover plate, it's fine, check that one rail there, also fine. This one, nothing. So I suspect that means there's an open ground in that coil. It's not like the cover plate ground has gone cold or it's torn off or something. It's more involved than that. And this is why I don't like doing wiring that involves pickups that were purchased used over the internet or open boxed specials, because there's always a reason the box came back open, right? I can't with this one. I've already rewired this thing the equivalent of 3 times, and I estimated 2 hours for this job. I'm now double that. So in this case, the old pickup is going to go back in. This one here is going to go in the box and get handed back to the customer. I don't have time to try and track down a split ground in this. I'd have to unsolder everything, take everything apart. That would be fun, maybe, if I had time, but I've got a book full of people who have been waiting patiently, and I can't lose half a day doing that for this pickup. The old pickup sounded pretty good, so I guess this is a partial success. I don't know. It feels like a loss. And up next, bet you didn't see this one coming. You guys don't know how long I've wanted to get into the lucrative and glamorous world of drum repair. This is a Mapex bass drum, and the owner purchased it not really figuring into the equation just how long this thing is and how much real estate it will take up on a stage. It's like having a length of culvert up there. So he would like me to cut this down for him from a 22-inch to a 16. That way he'll be able to get it through a doorway. Before I disassemble this thing, I need to take some measurements here. So it's actually about 22 5/8 an inch from the edge to edge on the rims. He was thinking about actually going down to a 14, but looking at the exposure here, it's about 1 1/4 inches, 1 3/8 to the top of the head. So yeah, we wouldn't be able to get a 14-inch. There's the hardware here for putting on the toms and stuff. 16 inches okay. So if I were, take 1 1/4 inches off that, that still gives us some room for mounting stuff, and it also keeps the nice Mapex badge here. So it's going to be a 16-inch.
I'll mark for the critical distances before taking off the rims. That's where I need to cut, right there. Then I'll turn on something interesting to listen to as I remove all the hardware here in the cool light of late afternoon, as there are a lot of bits and pieces that need to come off. I'll use a sliding combination square to mark a center line for each of the tension brackets now, while it's still on one piece, so I know where to re-drill them. There are some scuffs and scratches on the surface, but I didn't want to add any more during the sawing operation, so I wrapped it in thin foam carpet underlay to protect it from the surface of the table saw. This whole thing is a bit of a nail biter. It's not the simplest movement. You have to keep pressure against the fence while rotating the drum and keeping it centered on the blade. And later on, you don't want the saw kerf to close up or yawn open, because that would cause waviness in the rim. To this end, when I got close to the finish line, I lowered the blade a little bit so that it just made a scoring cut. Not cutting all the way through, just for the last 6 inches or so, which you can see here. I can cut that by hand and clean it up with no problem. The outside quality of the cut is pretty good, not that you'll focus on it in everyday use. So, I'll saw through with the Japanese saw, and I'll plane off the remainder. Drum edges are not flat, they're chamfered or cut at an angle. So this is a router bit, it's a chamfer bit, and a fence arrangement to help keep me stable when I'm cutting that edge, because there's very little surface area upon which to rest the palm router. It's very tippy. So that sort of keeps me closer to right angles I still need to concentrate though. And I'll sneak up on it in several passes, and I can clean it up by hand using spokeshave and sanding if need be. Now I can set my square and measure for the hardware from the original rim here and transfer those marks over to the new one. The fact that I could fit the head of my drill press inside the drum made this next procedure a little easier. I'm using a very small bit, just about a 1/16 of an inch, enough to provide a pilot hole, because there is a secondary positioning hole for a blind stud that you can see here that's above the main screw hole, and I need to measure for that. It's very nice that they chose an arbitrary distance of exactly 1 inch for that stud. I've set the square to register on the rim here, and I marked those out. I can drill a pilot hole for the blind stud, then a hole of the correct diameter. There's just a whole lot of drilling in this project. For the main through hole, I'm using a brad point bit, and I'm not going to go all the way through. I stop and I complete it from the inside to prevent getting a bunch of blowout in this curved surface here. So I get a clean result from both sides. That's a nice feeling. The brackets actually fit. I'll sand away the telltale pencil marks. I'll put it all back together. Get all that hardware in place. Then I'll tighten up the heads. That's the end of that project. It seems much more manageable and easy to move around. No more scraping your knuckles trying to get it through tight door frames. Thanks for watching. I should have a really fun resonator guitar for us to work on next week. Looking forward to that one. We'll see you then. Take care.